Hey, Lashpreneurs, on today's episode, we're going to dive into why I can't friggin' stand commission-based pay. I'm going to get on my soapbox today. Now, as a disclaimer, if you've been paid commission as an employee before in the past, this conversation is not really for you. Actually, you may identify with a lot of the reasons of why I don't like commission-based pay. Also to say, these are a lot of generalizations based on the hundreds of salon owners that I've worked with over the years and the experiences they have when it's done kind of what the standard way is in our industry, which I'll get into here in a second. If you have a team and you crunched your numbers and you are paying them a commission that is profitable and you have a great team culture, then these analogies, these examples may not be relevant to you. You may be the exception to the general rule of why commission-based pay in our industry, as far as anything but hair salons, right? Like if you are an esthetician, microblader, lash artist, wax artist, whatever. Hair salons, I haven't dabbled enough in the hair industry to really fully understand how commission-based business models work there. But generally speaking, the ones that do well with these commission-based models are ones that have high volume of clients in a salon. So they've got 10, 15, 20 hairstylists in there. And so the profit margins may be very small for that style of business, but they're doing multiple millions of dollars. So even like a 10% profit margin on a $2 million business is still, $200,000. So I want to just have that disclaimer that generally speaking, the reasons I'm going to share today as to why I can't stand commission-based pay apply. There are exceptions to every rule. So if you get your feathers ruffled, don't come at me, but I have my reasons for it. In fact, actually come at me. Let's have a conversation in the DMs on Instagram, whether you agree with me or not, and let's kind of go through it. So to start, the reason why I don't like commission-based pay is because I don't see it being a great employee retention strategy as far as their pay structure is concerned. That is my number one reason. And I'll get you the reasons why, that from the employee perspective and from the salon owner perspective, why having commission-based pay really creates a lot of inconsistency and confusion and doesn't keep the team member around very long. Why I actually think that the way that commission is done in our industry is why there's such a huge movement for people becoming solo business owners, why the salon suites is like a booming thing that everybody is getting in on. So first and foremost, when it comes to commission-based pay, I'm not even talking about 50% commission. We've got a ton of episodes on why 50% commission is not a profitable business model when you're talking about giving half of sales to your labor cost. So that's not general, that's included in commission-based pay, but I'm even talking like if you're doing 30% commission or 40% commission, just the commission, like the percentage of sales towards labor, that math doesn't necessarily add up for a team member or for the salon owner. So I'll start with the inconsistent in your payroll. When we have a percentage of sales, that's how we pay someone rather than say like a flat hourly rate, then your payroll will be very inconsistent until that team member is at a level of being booked that their sales are consistent. And that can take some time. That could take months, if not years, depending on how much you're marketing for that team member. So when we're talking about pay being inconsistent, sure, 40% commission, 50% commission sounds great, sounds amazing for your team member when they're fully booked. But if you've ever hired somebody, they ain't fully booked right off the bat, right? In fact, and even as a solo artist, think about it this way, like when you are getting to the point where you're starting to get busier, you will have weeks that are busier and weeks that are not as busy until you can get those slower weeks built up. We have a cyclical industry, right? So we have seasons where we're super busy, super booked, call it the holidays, right? And then we have slumps, and it just depends on where you are. Some of you are in touristy kind of cities, so you get big demand during the summer, and then like everybody goes away for the winter, or January is typically the slowest month. And so when we're looking at providing employment for someone and we're paying them and we want them to be full-time in our business, quite possibly, or even just part-time and eventually have their full attention on helping us to grow the business, We need to provide consistency in their income so that they can have predictability of what their lifestyle is going to be like. And look, it doesn't have to be that they're driving, you know, a Mercedes and they're living in the best zip code in the best schools with a 4,000 square foot house. Like, that may not be realistic, but some sort of consistency for their pay is the best employment retention strategy you can start with. Because if somebody's pay is inconsistent, how long do you think they're going to last there? At some point, they're not going to be able to afford to continue to work for you, because one week they're doing really good, their paycheck's really high, and the next week it's really low. But guess how most people, and this is not specific to our industry, most people do not budget for the dips in their income. They use their lifestyle according to the highest amount that they could be paid, right? So they'll look at their paycheck during a really good week and plan on spending all of that money. And then the next week they're like, well, shoot, I spent all the money from the good week and I didn't have as good of a week this week. And they're going to blame the owner, rightfully so, right? The owner didn't get enough clients in, that their commission pay wasn't there and their tip money wasn't there. That's the owner's responsibility to market to make sure there's enough clients in to have consistency in the team members' pay. So when we're talking about commission, their payroll, their paychecks will fluctuate greatly, as well as your payroll. So most salon owners who choose the commission, and I have had plenty of accountants tell me this, and more power to them, but it's also at the benefit of the business owner, not necessarily the team member, or a win-win situation for both, is like, oh, so if they're not taking paying clients, you don't pay them any money, right? So that's why you should do commission, because you're only having to pay them when they're actually generating sales in the business. Guess what ends up happening then? You and the team member are both in agreement that if she doesn't have clients that day, or she only has one or two, she can go home. Therefore, you're not having to pay her, right? If she's not producing sales, and therefore she's not getting walk-in clients, and you're not able to book people last minute, and you're not able to get people in the same day. She's not able to build a clientele. She's also not contributing to anything else in the business aside from just producing sales with that client. So therefore, her paycheck is then again inconsistent, and you have a team member who's only there for the money, right? Instead of building out a team who's there because yes, they're getting paid, and yes, they're building a part of the culture, and yes, they want to be a part of something greater. And they're, you know, why would a team member come in early to set up if she's not getting paid for it? So this also leads to that a lot of commission-based models, and again, this is not everybody, and if you've done your due diligence to understand the laws, at least here in the US, there are minimum wage laws, right? So when it comes to commission, I'm pretty sure this is a federal law. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure it's federal law, that they are owed minimum wage. No, it is federal law. Sorry. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's the minimum wage federal law that they should be paid minimum wage or commission, whichever is greater, right? And so if they are there for 15 hours a week, and the commission that they earn off the sales is not higher than what they would have gotten paid on working hourly minimum wage, then you owe them at least minimum wage for the hours worked. This is generally why people will send their team members home if they're not producing sales, because they're like, well, I don't want to pay this money. So if you don't want to pay money to a team member, even just their hourly rate, even if it's just minimum wage, how invested in helping you grow the business to get to the level of sales where they're busy are they going to be, right? They're not going to work for free. They legally can't work for free if you've classified them as a W-2. And so it's not a win-win relationship. It's basically playing not to lose instead of playing to win. You're trying to nickel and dime your team members, right? By like, oh, you don't have a client, go home for the next 2 hours, you can come back later. There also may be other laws in your state, California specifically. Essentially, the last time they changed the piece rate law was that you have to pay double minimum wage before you can have a commission-based structure. So essentially, if minimum wage is $15 an hour in California, you have to pay your team member $30 an hour if you want to pay commission, which would be on top of that $30 an hour. So most people in California are like, nope, flat hourly rate. It's going to be, you know, whatever the hourly rate is, but we're not even going to do commission because it's just the way that is structured in California, because there was so much of this inconsistency. There's also a lot of illegal ways that this is done here in the US, where people are classified as independent contractors. So they're not getting their federally mandated minimum wage, their sick pay, their payroll taxes, their Medicare, Social Security, all that taken out. We're not talking about that, right? I know a lot of you are competing against that because you're fellow salon owners, don't understand the laws and they're trying to nickel and dime and trying to like skirt the law, or they just don't know the law. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about legally structured W-2 employees here in the US at least. But that commission-based pay, while it may be profitable for you, I would much rather see from an employee retention strategy standpoint, an hourly rate that they can then have some sort of performance-based incentive that if they help grow the business, if they increase sales, if they keep their clients coming back, that will share in the growth of the business with them. Could be a commission-based, performance-based incentive plan. So, you know, if they're doing their job and their hourly rate, then after their onboarding, maybe we could set quarterly goals. If you reach this level of sales over the next 12 weeks, we'll give you a percentage of the sales as like your bonus. Right? That way we're not rewarding people who are not doing the work of helping the business grow, but we are rewarding and incentivizing those that really want to do well in their job, that want to see the business grow, that love the team culture, right? And they know that the business owner has an investment into them, because here's the thing, when you have hourly pay, yes, you are going to be paying your team member whether they're producing sales or not. It's generally speaking, not as much as you would think. I can help you with the math. Go ahead and DM me on Instagram if you need help figuring out that math. It's not as much as you would think. In fact, generally speaking, if your price point is decent and your hourly rate is profitable, anywhere from 3 to 5 fills a week is a good range for somebody to break even on their payroll costs. So if you've got a team member who's working 20 hours a week at $15 an hour or $13 an hour or whatever it is, and you look at how much they need to do in sales for you to cover your payroll costs for her. If it's anywhere within 3 to 5 fills, you've got a really great business model to build from. You've got a scalable business model that you can build from, generally speaking. So now your team member, and you can do this when you're pitching the job opportunity to them, you can say, look, you're going to get paid an hourly rate, plus you'll get tips. So that generally speaking will be around, you know, even if you're paying them $10 an hour and they get $20 from a tip, you're going to be making roughly around $30 an hour when you're with clients. Cool. And when you're not with clients, I'm still paying you your base hourly rate. So it really is in my best interest as the business owner to market you and to get you clients in the door so that I'm not losing money on your hourly pay. So then all of a sudden, when we're trying to compete against these 50% commission salons, we can say, sure, that 50% commission sounds great if you're fully booked. But let me ask you, is that salon owner fully booked in the treatment room? When's she going to market to get you a client? There's 4 other team members that work there, and there's probably seniority involved in that. So they're likely going to get any new walk-ins. So yeah, 50% commission is great, except you're not getting paid unless you have clients. And it doesn't seem like anybody in that business model is interested in getting you clients because they're not out anything if you just sit around all day, right? So that's not a great incentive. That's a great competitive advantage for you if you offer hourly rate, if you're being compared to somebody who does like a 50% commission. So back to commission, I don't like when you have commission-based pay, your team members generally look at what they're getting paid. So let's even call it 30% commission. Well, quick math in their head, they know that you're making 70% off of their work. Now, we as business owners know that's not the case. Like there's a lot of operating costs. But team members are kind of oblivious to running a business, which we want them to be. Like they don't need to know the ins and outs of the financials of the business, but that is the thought perspective that they will take. Like, oh, wow. So if I'm getting paid 30% of $100 service, well, she's making $70 off me every time I take a client. Hopefully we haven't hired team members that have that sense of entitlement and that kind of belief system. Hopefully they're making enough money that they're not really worried about like you rolling in the dough on their backs. Like it's a job. That's kind of the whole point, is that the business has to grow and it needs team members to grow the business. So we just don't like the comparison of they see what percentage they're getting. So they're equating the rest of the percentage going to you as the individual instead of the business. That does happen. I've heard that happening plenty of times. And also you're getting compared with your commission. If it's less than 50%, you're getting compared to the salons that do 50% commission. Right? Just automatically, it's a commission versus a commission. Why would they take the lower commission? Now, I already gave you one example of how you can compete against a commission-based salon, but we talked about that as an hourly rate. So they're not comparing apples to apples with commission to commission, if that makes sense. We're talking about, you know, an hourly rate that they then have to try and translate to the 50% commission model. It just doesn't necessarily make sense. And we can talk about the consistency in hourly rate. So all of that to say, the reason why I don't love commission, it can work, right? Especially if it's a lower base commission. But when it's a lower base commission, that may be what's profitable for your business and what your business can afford to pay a team member. We still have so many businesses doing it illegally at 50% commission. And so you're automatically being compared to other salons that do 50% commission. And if you're trying to compete with 50% commission salons that are doing it illegally and you're trying to structure it legally, we really have to highlight more of the benefits and what their pay will look like consistently so that they can really make an informed decision of comparing your job opportunity at whatever commission rate you're offering versus the 50% commission rates. We don't want to bring on team members that are only there for money. That is not a great employment strategy. It's not a great return on investment, because especially if you're looking at doing 40% or higher commission-based pay, you have no real room and no real profit margins to be able to increase their pay over time or invest in things like benefits, right? The benefits come from the operating expenses. You want to offer medical or mental health days or PTO, anything like that, that comes from having money left over in the business to be able to afford those things. Even team parties, holiday parties, outings, lunches, donuts on Mondays, whatever it is that you want to provide as benefits. If you don't have any wiggle room in your business because all of your money is going out the door to labor, then we also can't afford to pay our labor anymore because we're already maxed out by the time that they've had their first day. So it's not a great employment strategy ongoing to retain your employees if you're solely hiring those that only work for you for the money. And I've got plenty of different ways that in your hiring process, you weed out the people that are only there to build a clientele and go out on their own, or who are only there for the money, who will only work for the most amount of money they can get, likely because they've been burned at other places before. So the only thing that kept them staying somewhere was not the culture, not the mission, the vision, the values of the owner and where the business is going, not the other members. It was just how much they could get paid. And when you can't pay them anymore, they leave and think that if I go out on my own, I'll be making way more money, hand over fist, I'll be making 100% of sales. When in reality, they get out on their own and they're like, oh, shoot, I'm actually making less out on my own than I was at a stable, consistent job. And plus I have to learn how to marketing and I have to invest in the Lashpreneur Society and learn how to run a business and all these other things. So to summarize up, the reason why I just can't stand commission-based pay for 90% of the way that commission-based business models work in our industry is because it's not a great employment strategy retention-wise. It doesn't keep your employees' pay consistent, and we want to make sure that they're at least consistent so they know what they need to budget for in their life, what they can and cannot afford, and not just have these highs and lows and feast or famine kind of lifestyle. And we really want to have enough opportunity and growth in our business to incentivize and reward those team members that are really helping us grow the business as a team and together, instead of just every woman for herself, everybody stepping on each other, trying to get that client so that they can get the commission so that they can make money. Otherwise, they're going to leave and go home, and then they have no clients that can produce sales in the business. So if you have any questions about how to pay your team profitably and in a way that solves a lot of these issues that we brought up today, will you DM me #hire on Instagram and let's have a chat about it. Let's talk about either if you have a team and you're commission-based, what's that looking like? Are there any opportunities that we could improve or stabilize pay? Or if you're looking to hire your first team member and you want to do so profitably, we can talk about that too. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Have a good one.